Hey, good morning. Welcome to Sports Talk. I'm your host, Chris Rayner. Friday, February 21st. A lot going on. We've had Snowmageddon Part 2 this year, Ice-Mageddon, whatever you want to call it. Some ugly weather days. Some great guests, though. We had some cold weather, but some hot guests. Doug Erny, 2025 Hall of Fame inductee into the Jacksonville Sports Commission Hall of Fame.
Thank you very much.
And you get to marinate for a year before you have to do your acceptance speech because they're doing 2 for 1 now. So you guys will go in with the class next year, 2026.
Right.
So are you going to try and top Tony Marshmer's the length of his speech?
No. I can tell you my speech will not be anywhere near as long as Tony Marshmer's was.
And, of course, Chris Miller with us today, co-host. You've got co-host status now.
Oh, thank you.
And you can host the show anytime I can't make it. The man that knows more about Onslow County sports than probably the rest of the county put together. You cover it all. You get the unique thing of seeing all the teams. Private schools, public schools, all the teams. Unfortunately, I see everything through orange colored lenses because that's usually the only other time I get to see other teams play, other than like tournaments and stuff, So welcome today. Glad to have you with us.
Oh, thank you. I guess you needed somebody else to fill in, and everybody else said no. So
Doug requested you.
Oh,
He said if there was anybody who wanted to co-host one day, it was Chris Miller.
well, good. I'll
Because he said if he forgot the story, you can remember it.
Exactly. Chris followed my teams out of Lejeune more than
We've already told
ever.
4 stories before we got on the air, so we got to remember what those are.
every technical,
Every
and we got
detail.
some funny stories.
Oh, good. Well, that's what we want. But before we get rolling, let's pay some bills and thank our fine sponsors: National Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram, Jones Onslow EFC, your Touchstone Energy Cooperative, Jones LP Gas, located in Verona. That's our new sponsor. We got Jones LP. They're the ones that do the gas fill-ups for like, I don't want to say the number because I don't want to be wrong, but it's a very cheap number on Fridays. So go see Jones. Since it surprised me a little, but I'll have that number for you next week. That's the place to get your gas bottles filled, down in Verona. Golden Corral, Billy Sewell. Fountain Management, Sandra Fountain. Bartley Insurance Services, Bill Mercer. Onslow County Motor Company, Ben Beasley and the gang. Humphrey Heating and Air Conditioning, that Humphrey family, of course, legendary in the heating game. Lane Associates Family Dentistry, Doctors Tommy and Kim Morgan. Jones Onslow EMC, your Touchstone Energy Cooperative. When I first saw the Jones at the end there, that's always just kicked in my mind. I finally got to where I don't say Jones Onslow Sports Commission. It's the Jacksonville Onslow Sports Commission. Southern Touch Painting, that's Roger Carroll and his crowd. Barnes Diamond Gallery, they've been with us, and they gave away our $75 giveaway last week. You missed that by a week. It didn't go to the guest, though. It went to a caller. $75 in free jewelry from Barnes Diamond Gallery. And thank you to Lindsey Jarman and the crowd for doing that. I also want to thank Helen's Kitchen and Billy Grissett for those delicious cheeseburgers we're getting ready to dive into. We used to do breakfast bowls every week, 'cause it's the morning thing. But then we started mixing up a little. We got cheeseburgers, BLTs. He brought us fried bologna sandwiches last week. Oh. So we mix it up and, to keep it fresh. And then we'll have our Hurricane Watch. What little bit there is to watch, it's more like a hockey watch. It's powered by Down East Heating and Air Conditioning, Jason Humphrey and the gang. Hockey is on their 2-week hiatus during the old All-Star break, but now it's the Four Nations break. And, man, that's the way to do it because, man, they have lapped every other All-Star week. We'll talk more about that when it comes up. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can watch the shows and previous shows at YouTube at WSME Radio. Wave to the YouTube gang. You can also catch the show on Facebook on our Facebook page at Freedom 97.1 WSME. You can find all your favorite on-demand sports talk podcasts and stream the station live at our website at WSME971.com. Is this your first visit to the show?
It is.
Okay, I've been trying to get you for a couple of years since
Yeah,
you
you
retired.
did. You tried to get me at a time where I was just trying to ease on out of everything and kind of just ride off into
You
the
wanted to wait
sunset.
till you got put in the Hall of Fame
I
to do it.
didn't know that was coming. I just wanted to wait until I was retired and out of everybody's mind.
Well, if you'd have come on 2 years ago, you would have it where you could look at your podcast and anytime you wanted to.
Oh, it's
So
okay.
after this show, you can share it with people, folks that might want to hear all the good stories and stuff. People that may not be able to come hear a 2-hour-long acceptance speech at Sturgeon City down there. And let's jump right in. It was a dark and stormy night. That's the way I usually do it when little Doug Erny popped into the world. Where do you hail from?
right here in Onslow County.
Okay, so that's easy.
Yep.
I guess you were born at the hospital right behind us there.
Nope, I was born out on the base, to be honest with you.
Okay.
My dad was in the military at the
So
time.
you were highfalutin. All the rest of us were born right over here at the little
I don't know
building
about
behind
if it's
us, but
highfalutin or not, but that's where I was born, out on the base.
born on the base. Your dad was in the military, obviously.
Yes, sir.
How long did he serve?
Lord, I couldn't even tell you, 25, 30 years. He was a corpsman in the Navy.
Were you all over the place as a kid?
No, I wasn't, because when I came along, he was at the end of his career, and then he retired here. But my 4 older brothers, they were born up in Pittsburgh, and my dad used to go back and forth to Pittsburgh when they were young.
Okay.
From here to Pittsburgh every weekend. But
So that's where your family's originally
Yep.
from, your dad? And
Yep.
Now,
little place called Bethel Park right outside of Pittsburgh.
Bethel Park, Bethel Steel's very famous up in the
Yep.
in the area. Now, and I heard it in a Billy Joel song. So, of course, that's probably how you got your connections out doing your stuff with Lejeune, isn't it? Or not really?
No, not really. I mean,
That
I
came about later?
graduated from East Carolina and saw that there was a job opening and went out for the interview, and I was the only one that had a PE degree on file with the system.
Really?
So I got the job. I got the job that night.
That's the way to do it.
I was told I had the job before I left my interview.
I saw you out in the parking lot when you're pulling up, and you went by, and I saw all the pirate stuff on your truck, so I figured that was you.
Oh, yeah.
All right, Chris. Let's just throw in a story before we start getting all his dossier, his history and everything. You were telling about one. The guys were coming back from a game. Tell us about that
Okay,
one.
so this had to been what, maybe 12, 13 years ago. It was one of your really good teams, but y'all finished second in the regular season in the Coastal Plains behind East Carteret. It was one of the years that East Carteret went to the state final,
Yes.
I believe.
Yep.
And y'all were one game behind. You took care of business, but you needed East Carteret to lose to forge a share of the regular season title.
Right.
And so you called in the game result, and you said, "Hey, Chris, how did East Carteret do?" I said, "Hey, Coach, sorry, they won." And then Coach yells out, "Hey, everyone, East Carteret lost. We shared the title." All his guys are losing their mind. "Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah." And he goes, "Oh, my bad. I lied to you." Or,
That's wrong, Coach.
I just told him that I misunderstood Chris. I thought he said he won.
and then he throws me under the bus.
Oh yeah, so he blames it on you. That's the proverbial taking the candy from the baby right there, isn't it?
It fired him up and got him ready to play in the playoffs. So
No, y'all won
It
the
worked.
conference tournament.
Yep, it worked.
Now back then was conference tournament automatic bid.
If you won the conference tournament and you weren't the 1 seed, then you jumped up to the 2 seed.
But it wasn't like
the 1
say
seed
you were
was
the
set.
8 seed and you won and wouldn't have made the tournament anyway. Would you have been an
You
automatic
would have
bid?
jumped up into the number 2 spot.
Really?
Yes.
So it would
Conference
be an
tournament.
automatic bid then. Okay.
If somebody other than the one, lower than the 1 seed won the conference tournament back in those days, they automatically took the 2 seed.
So-
and the 2 seed dropped to 3, 3 dropped to 4.
To make sure people understand, it's like the ACC tournament used to be.
Yes.
You could be a team that wasn't going to make the dance, and all of a sudden you're in
Right.
because of that.
Yes.
Does any of them still do that anymore, Chris?
To be honest, a lot of them have really stopped doing that.
Uh-huh.
Quite frankly, I think a lot of conferences don't really care to have conference tournaments. They do.
So it's a throwaway.
Well, they do it because if you don't have it, this year is a little different because of the snow and the regular season got extended. But in most seasons, you would have a week without playing a game. So that's why a lot of these conferences have conference tournaments, because it gives some of these teams that are going to go to the playoffs at least 1 or 2 games to play before going to the tournament. But a lot of the conferences last year, in particular, Richlands Girls was the 4 seed, didn't make the playoffs even though they won their conference tournament. And
they didn't leapfrog enough.
and there's certain criteria, there's certain rules that apply, but the Coastal 3A Conference a couple years ago got rid of that, where if you're seated lower than second and you win the conference tournament, you don't get that automatic second seed. And to
that's
me,
what Richland, that happened with Richland.
if you're going to have a conference tournament, I think that it needs to be that way.
I agree.
It adds a little bit more excitement. And I remember the way the old East Central, where they had 8 teams, how special that was. It was either always at Southwest or Richlands. And I could tell you that I could still remember the matchups. The 1-8 girls game was always the 3 o'clock game.
Yeah.
1-8 boys game, and you had the entire tournament Monday through Friday at either, like I said, either at Richlands or Southwest, and it was a great event.
Yeah.
People,
because there was something on the line.
there was something online. There was, the tournaments were always organized, and I mean, great attendance, and it was like the ACC tournament, but for Onslow County.
And I don't know what the state's done as far as requirements, but that conference tournament back in the day used to also say my school and Chris's school were tied. that was one of the tiebreakers if we met head to head in the
I think that
conference
still
tournament.
is.
That
the
is still-
same.
I don't
know if it was still
that
the same
still
or not.
works. Now, to your information,
So there's a tie breaking scenario right there for
Right.
state playoffs.
Yeah.
So
Maybe
there are
you need-
some
maybe you need
reasons
conference
where it
tournaments.
is available. To the best of your knowledge, and what I've been able to get out of the coaches and staff and ads, that's the East Central's mojo this year. If whoever goes the highest between Southwest and Kinston will be the number 1 seed for the big tournament.
Yeah, for the state playoffs will be the conference's top seed. So both.
So obviously, if they meet, whoever wins the game. But if they don't meet, like say Kinston, like last year, Kinston lost in the semifinals.
Yeah.
So just by Southwest making it to the finals, they were
Yeah.
the higher seed. Okay, same thing because they split this year. Kinston won their game pretty lopsided.
Yeah.
Southwest clawed and won by about 10 at the end. But
Yeah. It was pretty back and
Kinston,
forth.
it was about 27 points the last one. I just noticed that Coach Keats has his back turned to us. Is it because I'm wearing my UNCW hat? And he left UNCW and went to state? He was sitting there facing away from either that or he was talking to Fred Flintstone over there. So maybe that's what it was. I get off on tangents pretty easy. So let's dive back into your career now because that'll make some of this stuff we just talked about make more sense. What was your first of all, did you play any sports in high school?
I did. I played baseball and basketball at Jacksonville.
Okay. And so you're a Cardinal. Okay.
I am a Cardinal.
Okay. I didn't know if because of where you were born, you may have gone there and everything.
Nope.
Okay.
I actually went through all 12 years of school here.
You might be one of the rare ones that has a Cardinal Lejeune tie. You know what I mean?
I mean, Debbie
those
Bryant, the AD out at Lejeune, she went to
She
Jacksonville.
was a
She
Cardinal.
graduated
too?
from Jacksonville.
Okay.
Yep.
Were you guys there at the same time?
Yes, she's actually no. She would have been 3 years older than me. So no.
Okay.
Because we only had 10th grade, 10th, 11th.
Debbie's
12th.
listening. She looks so much younger though.
She's older than me
We'll
though.
go with that. So you graduated from Jacksonville. Did the pros come call? I mean, the colleges come calling?
No.
Okay. Just making sure. I didn't want to skip
No.
a college career or
No.
anything. So you go into college, you go to East Carolina. Is that where you went right to start with
Yep.
or move around a little bit? So many times nowadays, like my kids went to Coastal.
Well, I went to
and then
Coastal
elsewhere.
for a little bit, and then I
that's
went to
what
East
mine did.
Carolina. Yeah.
And that saves parents.
But I didn't go into Portal 8 or 9 times and go to 9 different schools or anything
No.
like that.
The transfer portal because
Right.
you didn't like going to
I didn't go-
college.
I didn't
you
do
didn't
all
like the calculus program or something, or weren't getting enough NIL money in the science
Right.
lab. So a lot of kids may not know this, and I assume it's still the case because both my kids did it. They went to Coastal, and if you make a certain GPA at Coastal in the core classes, the state schools have to accept you.
I don't know about that. I know when
That
I
was the
went,
case.
it
And
was
so it's a great way to go if you can't.
yeah. When I
you're
went,
getting schools right
you had to
start
take
with.
courses that were college transfer courses,
Right,
and then
that's what
everything
these were.
transferred over. Yeah,
These were all ones that you had to get that certain curriculum. You couldn't just go over there and take
right.
basket weaving 101 or the AFAM classes, if you know what I mean. So tell us, Chris, what was your first experience with Doug?
Whoa. Oh man, what?
You weren't covering games when he was in high school.
No, but it was.
You weren't born. Well, maybe I don't know.
No, it was. I think I first started in full time in the fall of 03.
Okay.
And so I want to say, when did Joe graduated in 06, right?
Yes.
Joe Harris.
Yeah.
So it was when Joe Harris was.
So you were you were coaching Joe then.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Joe Harris, and so it had to have been some of those teams that Joe Harris was
Yeah.
on, and I actually, his brother was one of my PE teachers at Hunters Creek.
Okay.
You know, so I believe he coached basketball at
Yep.
Hunters Creek, and I think your brother also worked at the school as well. So
Well, that's a good segue to tell us about your family a little bit. Who all's in the area? How many brothers and sisters you got?
Well, I have 5 older brothers and 2 older sisters. All of them are in the Jacksonville area.
Did y'all
All of
have
them moved
TV
back.
in your house when your parents were
We did
growing
have a
up?
TV.
Okay, they just didn't watch.
We were
They
the
just didn't watch it,
remote
apparently.
controls for everybody. You'd have to go up and change the channels.
It's funny you should mention that because we've been talking about all the sports going to streaming now. Like the Thursday, that's one of my pet peeves. The Thursday night NFL game streaming.
Right.
I remember used to when it was Monday Night Football, you turned the TV on, you set the channel, and you were there.
Yep.
Now you got to get remote A, input B, this, that, and you can't flip back and forth to the cable channels. It's just aggravating. So, what was your first? Now are your parents from originally from Pittsburgh? You
Yes,
said your dad is.
my mother was an educator. She was actually teaching out at the on the base schools.
Okay.
And that's how I got the interview
Gotcha.
to get it. My oldest brother Don is a teacher. My sister Kathy's a teacher. So we have a lot of teachers in the family. But I
Okay.
have 5 older brothers and 2 older sisters.
Was Lejeune your first teaching gig?
My only teaching gig.
Okay.
Every year of my career was at Brewster.
So it was your first coaching gig too then?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, actually, no. My first coaching was at the first year I graduated from East Carolina at White Oak.
Okay.
I was a JV coach under Jack Bale.
JV basketball.
JV basketball. And then the following year, the Lejeune job came over, and I talked to Coach Bale about it, and he sat me down. He said, I think you're ready to take the job. You know, it'd be a good step for you. So he told me to go ahead and take it, because I was planning on being the JV coach at White Oak for a while.
Yeah.
So that's how the
And
job
maybe
Lejeune
progress
came about.
up to the other stuff at White Oak.
Exactly.
After White Oak, well, actually, I thought that was coming. That's why I had that little pause there. Whenever you see the red light, that means the Carolina Hurricanes have finally scored a goal.
Okay.
So, it also means it's time to take a break. So we'll be right back with Doug Erny and Chris Miller. Hey, welcome back to Sports Talk. I'm your host, Chris Trainer. Honored guest today, Doug Erny, 2025 Jacksonville Alonzo Sports Commission Hall of Fame inductee. Congratulations.
Thank you.
We're going to be talking about that career and what got you there. Chris Miller is our co-host today. He's going to pry some stories out of you and tell some stories. And then later on in the show, we're going to talk, too, about the upcoming weekend. Everything got pushed back a little because of the snow and ice and the threat of it. You know, it wasn't as much as everybody thought it was going to be, but we'll see you know, what the upcoming tournament pairings are and everything, and what the tournaments actually mean. But we had gotten you through. You were coaching at White Oak and JV. Now your first head coaching gig. Where was that at?
My first head coaching gig was at Lejeune, and I inherited a team that had 12 kids that were underclassmen. So I figured, being a nice guy coming in, I would keep all 12 of them. Well,
Wait a minute, was that football or basketball?
That was basketball.
I was making a joke because you know how it is at Lejeune. Sometimes that's your football team.
Oh no,
You know,
that was
that's a lot for basketball.
back then.
Yeah.
The football teams had a lot, but anyway, I mean, we always had a slew
Well, hold on.
tryout.
What year was this?
1990 was
Okay,
my first
yeah,
year at Lejeune. And that team, out of the 12 guys, I had one kid who could shoot a left-handed layup. He was left-handed. So needless to say,
Could he do right-handed?
He could not do a right-handed
Okay.
layup, but he could do a left-handed layup. We went 2-20 that first year. My second year, we went I'm sorry, we went 1-21. The second year we went 2-20.
Hey, if you double your wins every year, you're in good shape.
Right. 25 years from then, I might have broke 500.
Well, actually, it wouldn't take that long.
But the second team I had, I decided I was going to keep, a lot of young kids. I was going to build this group, didn't know anything about the military life. Well, I took a bunch of young kids, and next year I had 3 of them back. The rest of them had been transferred.
Military life.
So third year, I decided I was going to take the 12 best players, regardless of age classification, and we were going to make our team out of that. And that's how we went for the rest of my career out there.
So basically, you were a precursor to the one and done that's in college basketball.
Yes.
You might get a great kid that was a freshman or sophomore, and you ride him because
And I had a couple of those. I had a kid who probably would have been the only kid that would have started for me as a 9th grader before Joe Harris came in.
Yeah.
And he was phenomenal. We got back from a team camp down in Conway, South Carolina. And his dad met me in the parking lot and said they had orders. This kid went on to get a full scholarship to Winthrop and play basketball for 4 years there.
Wow.
Elijah Holland.
And Winthrop's in South Carolina too, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
So, he went to Goose Creek High School down in South Carolina. Ended up being a really good player. But you think of what he could have done at Lejeune back in the day in the 1A level here.
Yeah.
And I'm probably going to get some grief from this, but I don't care. But the one thing about Coach,
I'm sitting back.
and one of the reasons why the Lejeune boys team was so successful under his watch was, the Lejeune coaches had to reapply for their jobs every year.
And August 1st, isn't it?
Yeah, but Coach, there were times that maybe he didn't know he was going to get the job, but he still worked with his kids in the summertime and in the off season, so they were mentally and physically prepared for the season because he had the best interests of the kids at heart. You don't really see that a lot these days where, I don't know if I'm going to be coaching, so I'm not going to work with these kids. Well, that showed the commitment to the kids, and I think
that shows he's there more for the kids than he is.
Yeah.
We had a couple times where admin told me, why are you doing this? You might not be the coach. I said, well, in my opinion, I'm the coach until they hire a new one.
I'd be like,
so my job is to get the kids ready for whoever is going to be their coach. That's how I felt.
What would be the reason they would not have you back as coach?
There could have been somebody who came in with a better resume or did a better interview than me.
But
or
the
they might have just got sick and tired of me.
continuity is so important as a coach.
Well,
we've seen so many times in any sport, football, basketball, whatever, that a coach only get a year or two and they pull the plug when he might have turned out to be getting things. Look at Bo Williams.
Exactly.
If they'd have pulled the plug after the first 2 years,
Yep.
they wouldn't have Bo Williams as coach.
That's just the way the federal system works.
Yeah.
It is what it is. You make do with the best you can.
And as you're talking about it as a basketball coach, you knew August 1st, I guess, whether you'd be the basketball coach, correct?
Yes.
And your season started around the 1st of November practice and everything, right? No.
Right. Well,
maybe late October.
You started on November 1.
November 1, okay. Imagine being a football coach and not knowing until August 1st.
Oh, I know.
That's
I've been
even
in that
worse.
position too.
And
Well,
we'll
been
get
there
to
as
that because
well.
you coached that sport too. But progress us through your Lejeune teams as you started getting more competitive, getting more players, things like that.
I mean, we always had a lot of kids try out for the team. There was always a slew of everybody can play basketball.
Yeah.
And
We all think we can.
yeah, and I mean, it was easy for me because summer workouts were real easy because kids would rather come in an air-conditioned gym and play basketball all day long than go roll around in the dirt playing football or whatever. So it was never a problem of me getting the kids in. It was my biggest problem was getting the kids out because they wanted to stay forever. I mean, my better teams, they'd go through a 2-hour practice with me, and then the next day they'd tell me, Coach, we went to the field house and we ran the Marines all night. I was like, well, that's good practice, So they played all the time. I don't know if it was as much me as it was the mindset of the kids I had.
Did that kind of wear them out a little for practice though?
No, they were all
They're young,
they
full of
played
energy.
all 3 sports. Most of them played all year round. So
Now, while we're on that, we're not wearing kids out. Did you ever coach soccer?
no,
Okay. Have you ever seen the start of a soccer game? The warm-ups. The kids
Yeah.
play a full game before the game starts.
Oh, yeah.
I've had that out with coaches 100 times, and I said, look, I'll be honest with you. You know soccer way more than I do. But it just seems to say this game goes into the overtime process. Wouldn't those legs be a little more valuable if they hadn't run a full game before you ever started this game? Especially on a hot day or something. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
You've
I know what
seen
you're talking about.
It looks like they play an entire game before the game starts. And that's just me. Chris, you've been in enough games.
Yeah.
You might not get there early enough to see the warm-ups, but you've seen what I'm talking about, man. And they're out there running. It's like wide open. And I realize they're full of energy, but I still had them legs at the end
and
of the
as
game.
far as the conditioning you're talking about, we always my entire staff had the same mentality. We made our practices hard enough to where the games were easy for them.
Yeah.
Like our practices were very competitive.
So the
for
game was
2
a
straight
cakewalk,
hours.
yeah.
And everything, we didn't do any half court drills. We did every drill full court. So they were running for 2 solid hours. We would give them every 10 minutes or so, we'd give them a 30-second break where they could get water. And then every another 10 minutes, we'd give them a minute break because that's how long timeouts were.
Yeah.
You know, so
That makes
we
sense.
built that into our practice plan every day. Water breaks and everything were built in every day.
Now, what about free throws late in the practice when they're tired? Because they're going to be tired at the end
Did
of the
them
game?
every day.
Yep.
We did them in scrimmages. We did them every day. Now, we didn't necessarily run all the time for free throws. There were times where we did run.
To kind
But
of let them know what
we would do
happened,
different
yeah.
things off of it. Okay, if, you know, we put a scoring time on the clock. We got free throws to see what we're going to do, and we'd make a scenario out of it. You know, practice end of game situations all the time.
Well, I'm full of Herb Brooks quotes right now. You know, Herb Brooks, the coach
Yep.
of the 80 Olympic team, because I watched Miracle this week. You can imagine why.
I've seen it.
I've got it on DVR, and I just felt like I need to watch it. Something about this week made me want to watch it. And some of his quotes were, and I don't know if it's been jazzed up for TV or not, but or the movies or not. But the legs feed the wolves. That's one. And then one comment he had where he was talking about when we go to Lake Placid, we may not be the best team there. We're going to be the best conditions.
Yep.
Because that's what you got to have a lot of times when you're not.
I was a firm believer in
talent-wise.
conditioning my teams.
And
And
one
Chris,
more.
and Chris could tell you because we had to be in condition. We never played zone.
Yeah.
Really?
I think
You were all man to man.
in my 25 years at Lejeune, we might have played a total of 20 possessions of zone.
Okay, let's go to the panel. Is that true? Wow.
If you ever want to get him to rant and rave, ask him to play zone defense.
So he was like Krzyzewski back at when he was coaching the Army, all man to man.
I felt like zone was a lazy defense and guys could skate by.
They kind of just slid
And,
around a little.
and my
yeah,
players earned their playing time by their defensive end of stuff.
moving their feet.
Yep.
Yeah.
One more Herb Brooks quote, and then I'll leave it alone. Talking about when you put on that jersey, the name on the front means a hell of a lot more than the one on the
Yep.
back. Which in high school, of course,
Yep.
most of them don't have no names on the back, but you know what it means. Now, Chris, throw in another. Let's go with a Lejeune story if you have one.
Oh yeah. Speaking of names,
You seem like you have plenty of
two
them.
names: Aiden Grifton.
Oh, Lord, have mercy.
Is
Don't even
that
go
players
there.
or is that
No,
the
that's
team?
a school.
That's the school.
I know Aiden Griffin is, but I didn't know if it was
So-
the way you said it. I didn't know if it was. Okay.
So let's just say Doug Erny. Every time he drives by Aiden Grifton High, he gives them the side eye,
Really?
and that's the clean version.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it's right there on the way to Greenville.
To
You
Greenville,
can't
I
miss
go
it.
back and forth all the time.
Hey, I told you I'm gonna.
I mean, that's a true story. We played in the regional, the semifinals there to go to the Final Four, which was then in East Carolina University, and we
And
kinda,
you would have loved to have done that because of.
Oh, we did there a couple of years,
Yeah.
but 2 years in a row we were another game from there, so it would have been a stretch of 4 years in a row we went or whatever, and we kind of, I mean, I don't want to say we got cheated, but we pretty much got cheated out of that game.
Well,
2 years
tell.
in a row.
I'm
2
listening
years
to
in
the
a row.
story.
They're just one. The foul discrepancy was so bad. Then there was another one where we were down one. We get a rebound off a missed shot with like 4 seconds to go, and Joe Harris starts dribbling the ball up the floor, and I call timeout. Okay, so where do you put the ball in play if you're at half court when the timeout is made?
Say it again.
Where would you put the ball? As an official, where do you put the ball in play? If
Half-
the ball's
just
being advanced to the half
right near
to
the
front.
timeline, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we design a half court play for 4 seconds.
Okay.
And we come out of the huddle and they got us throwing it
They
in
got
from
you
the
at the
baseline.
baseline. Okay.
So-
That's wrong.
And I didn't have another timeout to change the play, so yeah, that was wrong.
Coach, that's wrong.
And Coach didn't want to say it, but there was some scoring malfunctions.
Yes, there were
too.
some scoring malfunctions.
I wasn't running the scoreboard, was I?
No, you weren't running the score.
You don't remember? You remember me down at Dixon
No,
when we were
I'll-
out of our gym?
To save you from getting in trouble, the Aiden Grifton's scorekeeper screwed up, and Coach thought he had more timeouts. Or
So it wasn't score. Actually, it was just like timeouts.
I think
It was a score too.
Yeah, it
because
was a score, too.
Well,
my
don't
books,
they? At that point, don't they stop it and compare the books and everything?
you would think they do, and the officials do, but if they can't come up with a consensus, then it goes to the home book.
Wow.
And I had one of the best scorekeepers that knew everything about the game, and they had it right. And when we actually went back and looked at the film, we did have it right.
And the home book had them with more.
Had 'em
points.
wrong.
Did the home book just zone out and then go with what the scoreboard said? You
I
think?
couldn't tell
Or
you.
you
You'd
think
have
they
to talk
just-
to those people.
Just
it was a scorekeeper that got caught up in the game and maybe exaggerated.
I mean, if you ever watch Chris do a basketball game, his tablet is full of His paper is full
Notes
of
and
everything,
stuff, yeah.
and he even said the score was wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Well, it's not hard as a scorekeeper. They put me doing it down at Dixon when we were out of our gym because of Florence. So we were using Dixon's gym. Apparently, nobody else could make the ride, to Holly Ridge or whatever you call it there. So they put me doing the clock and everything. That's where I first met Robert. That was my first conversation with Robert Farley when he stopped by there and said, "Look, man, the time thing is the most important thing in the game. Please keep up." Because I would be the game. They'd take a timeout, go to the bench, clock would. Or even worse, they would inbound the ball at the clock not move.
Right.
And it's just I got caught up in the game. I weren't used to
it
it.
happens.
So I got to throw you under the bus again. Speaking of referees, what about the technical foul?
Which one?
Which one?
The
Do you only get one?
do I get a technical for?
For what I think? No, I better not say that on the air. One of the officials came over to me and I said, "Sir, can you give me a technical for what I think?" And he said, "Well, of course not." And then I proceeded to tell him what I thought of him.
I think
And
you
I
suck.
got the technical, so then I told him you lied to me.
Are you a big hockey fan?
I do watch.
We said it on the air last week if you were listening. One of the best official razzes I've ever seen in any sport. It's not just because I like hockey, but they send the guy to the penalty box. As he's going to the penalty box, he covers his eyes, takes his hockey stick and turns upside down and starts tapping out in front of him on the ice.
Hey,
it
I'm
was
going to
bad.
get you in trouble, aren't I?
No, you ain't. Who am I going to get in
Who's
trouble
getting in
with?
trouble now? Now, what are you doing now?
Relaxing.
So
Going
you're not
playing golf.
doing anything?
Anything I want to.
I mean,
on
you're
my
not
own
working at
schedule.
any of the schools
No,
part-time
sir.
or anything like that?
I've
Now,
been
you've
asked to,
out-
but
How
nope.
long have you been out of the game?
This is my third year.
So you could go back as the part-time, like a lot
I
of other
could.
people do. Okay.
I could, but I don't want to.
Get with Dave Miller and the crowd at Infinite Prog.
Nope.
They found him a
I
little
don't,
gold mine over
I
there.
don't want to. I did my time. It's time for younger people to take over.
Because now, let me ask. A lot of people may wonder how this works. If you retire from the school system, you got to sit out 6 months totally, right?
From the base system?
No, you were from the base system, but like the county system.
Oh, I don't know.
So you don't know how that works then. Okay. I think it's 6 months and then they can go back like half-time or something like that. But there's really no restrictions if you go back to like a private school or
Right.
something like that. Now, how is it with the base? Are you totally out?
I think they have a designated time where then you can go back and become a sub, or you. I don't.
So
think,
it's very similar.
I don't think you can go back and become a teacher again because you've already had
Who would want to? You just want to go
a
coach.
federal payroll,
Yeah.
Yeah.
thing. So you're already in a retirement system. So I don't know that you can go back and. I don't
So
really
it
know how
sounds-
that works because I never looked into it because I'm not interested in
It
it.
sounds like it's similar to what the state does then. But can somebody go back and just coach like as a volunteer and?
Yeah, they'll
do
take.
that stuff.
Well, I don't know. The school systems out on base do take volunteers. I think. I'm not sure. I think the high school may not this year, but I know the middle school does. They'll take parent volunteers and stuff.
Now, before we go to our next break, because it's coming up, and the light will let us know when. What are all the sports you coached?
I coached football, basketball, and baseball at the high school. I was assistant softball at the high school 1 year. At the middle school, I did football, basketball, baseball, track, volleyball,
swept the floors,
everything.
sold
cut the
peanuts
grass,
at halftime.
cut the
yeah.
grass, marked the fields, and the AD.
A lot of people have no idea that when you're razzing that coach, that you're razzing the guy that's been out there probably 60 hours that week.
Exactly.
Aside from coaching.
And
You know
probably
what I
spent
mean?
more time with your child than the parents actually do in
Yeah.
a lot of cases.
When they're mowing, you go out there on a Saturday, they're mowing grass.
Yep.
Especially in the summertime when you got to keep it a certain level and everything.
Oh, yeah.
Lining the field, that's not something, there's no fair. And now there is a machine now that does it, the turf tank.
Yeah, we have the walk behind push one.
We priced the turf tank and we're going to stay with the walk behind.
That's
because
we do the walk behind line. Might be a little bit crooked, but
Unless, of course,
lot
the
cheaper.
Jacksonville Daily News would like to sponsor a turf tank for the entire county.
Oh.
And we'll just paint every field in the county with
I
it.
don't have any money.
Okay.
I'm broke.
Well, talk to the people at the paper and let us know because if they want to sponsor, we'll call it the JD News Turf Tank, and it'll go to every school each week and
that's
paint.
a hard no, right, Cliff?
Yeah, that's
Chris?
Have you by any chance seen that thing before?
I have seen it.
It's
I've
impressive.
seen videos of
Yeah,
it.
it's impressive, but it's also very expensive.
Oh yeah.
So, out of all sports, is basketball your primary one?
Yes.
And was that your love as a coach?
Actually, I really enjoy coaching baseball more than anything.
Really?
Just because the game's so slow and you can just, But basketball I like because you have to be ahead of the play. You have to be thinking a couple plays ahead. Kind of like, calling offensive plays in football. You always had to think a play ahead.
Yeah, like chess,
Yeah.
basically. And in your years of coaching basketball, did you ever have to follow it up with the baseball season?
Yes.
So
as
that's
a head
tough.
coach. And we would be
That
in the
might be one of
playoffs
the
for
tougher
basketball.
ones.
So we would go out and while it was light, have baseball practice and then have basketball practice
Yeah.
when it got dark.
And that's one of the tougher ones because the seasons overlap so
Yep.
much as far as If you're in the playoffs deep and you're trying to get spring training in before the season starts, that's a lot of time.
I think I went 3 or 4 years in a row where I was football right into basketball, right into baseball.
All three.
All three of
Wow,
them.
that's crazy. I see Hollywood reaching for the mic, so let it go and see it for the
Red light's on.
The red light's on. Canes have scored another goal. It's 2-0. We're gonna take our second break, and we'll be right back on Sports Talk. Hey, welcome back to Sports Talk. I'm your host, Chris Strainer. Chris Miller today, Jacksonville Daily News, jdnews.com. What's all the other monikers we want to say? Sports editor, sports writer, sports guru, Onzo County sports expert. What other titles do you have?
I can't say them on the air.
Today, your co-host.
Oh,
So you
yeah.
got that title, too. Because our guest today is Doug Erny, of course, 2025 Jacksonville Alonzo Sports Commission. That's a mouthful to say every time. Hall of Fame inductee. And we talked about it on off the air, but I don't think we said it on here. I'm gonna try and get them to let you go first for your first speech, to do the first speech. Do you know why you want to do that? To be honest with you,
Well, I just want to make sure that Tony, if he's in attendance,
right.
that he has time to finish his speech.
so you concede your first 5 or 10 minutes to Tony Marshall to
Right.
finish up his speech.
Right.
It's different than remember when we were back in school and you had a project to do. Everybody in the class had a project, and everybody had to present it. And I was one of those that would sit there and I'd stew over it. It'd go a couple of days presenting projects, and I'd be trying to go over mine while the other persons are presenting it. I learned in college, go first.
Wait,
Obvious
They
reasons.
usually grade you easier if you go first.
Also, if you go first, you get it over with, obviously. Also, nobody's listening. They're all looking at their own, trying to think what they're going to be doing. Think about it.
Wait, let's
Nobody's
get the
paying
record
attention.
straight. You were one of those that got the A when the rest of the group did all the work, and so
No, I'm talking about like individual
No.
stuff. So it wasn't probably all A's. But if everybody's sitting there stewing over their project, you go first, nobody's paying attention to you. You get up there, and other than the instructor, nobody's listening. So that's the way to go. All right, we've worked through your time as June. We didn't finish everything. What was your the coup de grace, the coup de grace? What was your I know. I said it that way on purpose. I made sure I pronounced it right so people didn't think I was a raving idiot.
I
Or
don't
not
know,
more than others.
I don't know if I can signal one thing.
Well, what was your year that you guys went the farthest?
One thing I really liked at Lejeune is, and this is probably going to be hard for you to believe, but with all the turnover at Lejeune, coaching wise or whatever, in my 30 years of coaching varsity basketball, I had 7 assistant coaches
Really?
total.
So that's actually not too bad for that length
Well,
of time.
I had great assistants. That's why it helped me get this award of being into the Hall of Fame. But I had 2 while I was at Lejeune, and then I had Steve King, Glenn Kellum.
Steve King.
had all those guys come in and Bob Mills, and then when I went to Jacksonville, they went with me.
Oh, Bob Mills. Bob was your
Yep.
assistant. That's awesome.
Yep, Bob, Steve, and Glenn helped me probably 12, 13 years.
Would you ever think that your assistant coach would be sponsoring the tournaments and stuff you'd be playing in later?
Oh, so that's how we got in.
Bob does
right.
so much for
He does.
everything around here.
There's certain ones in Onslow County. I don't want to forget anybody, but Steve Goodson at Jones Onslow, Roger Carroll at Southern Touch, Bob Mills.
They're the ones that do
There's
a
just so
lot
many ones,
for-
and I shouldn't have started because there's going to be ones I forget. The Morgan family, Billy Sewell,
Right.
Golden Corral. There's just so many. Harry Brown, National Dodge. It's almost like our sponsor
Right.
list, but there's just so many that do great things. For all the sports teams, and it's not just their own teams.
Yeah,
they
but-
do it for everybody.
I mean, I just always had the reason I've got the number of wins and the Hall of Fame and everything is just
Yeah.
great players, great assistant coaches, great staffs. I mean, even down to like training staffs. Lisa Beavers is phenomenal with keeping your athletes healthy. She's still out at Lejeune, by the way, but she was always right there to help us with everything. Just the people behind the scenes are just as important as the guy up front.
That's true.
And I was blessed to have a lot of good ones over my career, and a lot of great players and longevity. That's what equals all those wins. Not my knowledge of the game, that's for sure.
Now, what would you say was your finest year, though? Can you pick a year? What year did you go the furthest? Let's start with that.
We went to the Eastern Championship game in 94,
At
93,
Lejeune.
94 with players like Collis, Eric, and Jacon Grimes, and Chad Thomas and them. We made it to the finals and lost to Williamston by 2 in a game, the first time I'd ever seen a high school game televised. It was televised locally. That was probably one of my better teams. But
And was that was 1A, right?
That was 1A. But I've had a lot of teams that weren't very good at the beginning that just surprised you and went really far and to the sectional finals and stuff like that.
So necessarily, it's not the farthest they went, but the amount of growth they had.
Right,
in the year.
exactly. And I had a lot of teams that went from, we might have a chance to be good to, this team's really good by the end of the year.
And so many
And that's
times,
a lot of the assistant coaches doing that,
you in the 1A ranks, you're talking about the super schools in 1A, Williamston,
Yes.
Tarboro, not necessarily in just basketball, but there's certain ones in 1A that were always there.
Right.
Out west, you got Murphy, Swain County, schools like that. You had something, Chris?
Oh no, I was gonna remember the Northside was the first team to win the Onslow County Classic when it returned several years ago.
Was that the Bob Mills?
Yeah, Bob Mill. Yep. You know who the second was?
Lejeune?
Lejeune.
Now, was that when you had, you said his name earlier?
Joe Harris.
Joe
Joe
Harris,
Harris, yeah. Because Joe's one of those players that's just stuck out over the years.
No, Joe Harris was not on that team.
No, that's before Joe got there.
Was it?
Yeah. I don't really remember who all was on that team, to be honest with you. But I do have a picture hanging of every team I've gotten, so I can tell you. But
Can you run down to your office on the break?
that was one of those teams that we talked about earlier that wasn't very good, but just kept getting better and better as the year went
and that's
on.
what you want. You want ones that are going to work hard and get better. Now, how did you end up getting from Lejeune to Jacksonville?
Coach Holtzford came over and told me that they were getting ready to make a change and asked me if I'd be interested in it. And I said, well, yeah, we'll sit down and talk. And so I went over there a couple of days later and sat in the coach's office, and we talked for a while, and he showed me around, and I was like, yeah, I think I'd like to come on back. But I did make one thing. I said, Coach, if I've got to drive a bus, I'm not going to do it. Because I never had to drive a bus. And he's like, I'll get you a bus driver. And so I asked him, I said, well, do we need to go talk to the principal or anything? He said, nope, job's yours if you want it.
See, now
I
you
said, I'll
only
tell you
asked,
tomorrow, and I accepted it.
you only asked for one stipulation. You might could have got more.
Nah, I wasn't worried
limo
about
to their
Well,
games, things like
wasn't
that.
worried about all that. I live a minute away from the high school. I didn't need a limo.
Were you living there when you were going all the way out Lejeune? Okay.
Yep.
Now, were you coach at Lejeune when Jacksonville came calling?
I was not coaching basketball at Lejeune. I took
At
a
that
year
time.
off. I had
Okay.
stepped away from Lejeune, took a year off to get the middle school sports program started up. And then that one came, and I had a couple of really good people that were helping me out at the middle school level to cover stuff if I wasn't able to.
Yeah.
So I was able to accept it.
Now, you say getting the program started up was how old? I mean, is that when they first started?
Yeah, Brewster's only had sports for 13 years now.
Really? How long has it actually been there, though?
Oh, it's been there since the
At the dawn of
40s,
time,
I
that's
think.
what I
Yeah,
thought.
from way
So-
back. But
so why
when
did
I
they
first
wait so long to start sports?
When I first started, we went to our school board every single year for about 20 years to try to get sports. And we always got shot down by headquarters or whoever. So I finally had a parent who was our school board president. She was not going to take no for an answer. And she went all the way up to D.C. to talk about it. Came down, we presented in Onslow County. And
Now, when you
Pam
said DC,
Thomas,
is that Dupin County or
no, that's
District
District of Columbia, where the bosses are at. And then we came back here and presented at Onslow County, and Pam Thomas, who was the school board president, told us we're in.
That's awesome.
And we started from there.
And that's where you started as one of the. Was there 9 now?
There's
middle
9
schools?
now.
Okay.
Yep. So it took a little bit of adjusted schedule where everybody now has a bye week, but
Okay.
it works out good.
And we'll talk a little bit more about that when we come back in your time at Jacksonville. We'll be right back on Sports Talk. Hey, welcome back to Sports Talk. I'm your host, Chris Rayner. We're going to forego the Hurricanes watch. I mean, they're not playing right now. They had the 2-week break for the Four Nations tournament. Four Nations tournament, man, that was a win when it comes to All-Star break, wasn't it?
They
the
definitely
USA,
did it right.
Canada, back and forth, that's just unreal. We'll talk more about that next week when we get back to our normal Hurricanes watch. But you got the NFL playing flag football now for the All-Star break. Baseball is still hitting home runs, and they still put out a little bit. You don't have Pete Rose bowling over somebody at home plate anymore. NBA 247 to 243 when they used to play the game. This past weekend they did something a little different. That 4-person, I don't know, I didn't watch it. I was watching the end of the Daytona 500, so I missed it. But it's a little different, but it's hard to beat the passion you saw in that Four Nation thing between USA and Canada.
The NBA had 4 teams at 8. Well, 3 teams at 8 and 1 team of 7 since LeBron bailed out at the last minute.
So it was kind of like a little.
They had 3 NBA
tournament.
teams, and then they had 1 Futures team. The team that won the Futures game played as the 4th team.
LeBron bailed out. I've
Last
heard
minute.
that.
Last minute.
Yeah, I heard he had to rest something or whatever.
Ankle injury.
I love that one video that shows the NBA player flopping when he don't even get touched, and then it shows Alex Ovechkin for the Capitals get hit on the bench with a puck in his mouth. He spits a tooth out and then gets on
Gets
the
right back in the
shift.
game. Yep.
That's the difference between. I mean, hockey's just a tough sport. I would, football is fairly tough too. I would say lacrosse is pretty hardcore like that. So we're gonna jump into this day in sports, and we'll talk more about that. The Hurricanes coming up next week once they get back into their games and everything. This day in sports, all this stuff happened on a February 21st at one time or another. We'll start with 1931, Chicago White Sox and the New York Giants. So a football team played a basketball or a baseball team. No. The White Sox played the Giants back then. It was the first exhibition night game. I wonder what the lighting was like in that first night game.
Probably cars pulled up to the fence.
Either that or
Like you see-
candles.
like you see in the
Candles
Little
with a
Leagues.
mirror behind them. All right. Got you, Coach, on the next one. You got a short one.
Yeah, what-
1948 NASCAR is incorporated.
I mean, the Moonshiners got together and they decided, hey, we're making good money for running shine through the hills of North Carolina and Tennessee, but let's make real money and get on the track. And one day, Fox and CBS will pay us millions of dollars for TV rights.
That's right.
Who would have thought it? All right, Chris.
All right, 1951, South Carolina House of Representatives urges shoeless Joe Jackson to be reinstated by Major League Baseball.
Okay, you may know why this is. Was he from South Carolina, I assume?
Yes.
Okay. I did not know that. It doesn't, in the movie, I don't think it ever addresses that, but I didn't know he was from that region. I don't think he ever got reinstated, did he? Or none of the Black
No.
Sox did, yeah. All right, in 1953, the longest collegiate basketball game, 6 overtimes. Niagara beats Siena, I think is how it's pronounced. I thought that was a color of crayon, and the old Crayola is 88-81. 6 overtimes. What's the longest one you ever remember that you guys had?
We had a 3 overtime game once. I think that's been tied since because maybe 10 years ago, Syracuse and Georgetown went 6 in the Big East tournament game.
Syracuse and UConn.
Or the UConn,
Yeah.
there you go.
And
Went
the score
6
still
overtime.
wasn't even half what an NBA All-Star game score was, probably. So 3 overtimes in high school that you guys had, what was that, 5-minute periods?
4-minute periods.
Okay. Is it still 4 now if they go overtime? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, Chris. No, I'm sorry, it's you, Coach.
All right. In 1968, baseball announces a minimum annual salary of $10,000. Adjusted for inflation in 2025 would be $80,000.
Apparently, there's something you can do now, Chris. I'm going to get you on the mic, so be ready. An AI function that can tell you this stuff. Because remember, we would have these ones that say Shoeless Joe Jackson was paid, or Babe Ruth was paid $7,000 to play in 1921, or that's just an example. Apparently, there's something now that can calculate what it would be worth today, right?
Yeah, we can ask her a question. Is there any question you want to ask her? My
Yes.
friend, ask her a question.
Who will win the Super Bowl next year?
Hey, Chat GPS, who do you think will win the Super Bowl next year?
It's tough to say for sure, but some favorites might include strong teams like the Kansas City Chiefs, the San Francisco 49ers, and the Philadelphia Eagles. It really depends on how the season plays out. Do you have a favorite team in mind?
Wow. You got a friend there. Some people, it's like the episode of Big Bang Theory where Raj was, had almost a relationship with Siri, You got to be careful there. All right. Well, you did the last one, right? Yeah. All right. 1969, Ted Williams signs a 5-year contract. It doesn't say what it was to manage the Washington Senators. That's a name hadn't heard in a long time. A lot of people thought at one time that might be one of the commanders. When the Redskins went away from it, might be one of the names they would use would be go to the Senators like they did before, but they became the Commanders. Or as I called them the one time, the Commodores. And I forget who our guest was, but it says, what is Lionel Richie the quarterback? All right, Coach.
1973, Chicago Blackhawks record their 262nd NHL game without being shut out.
I don't think that's in a row, though. Maybe it is. It's got to be. Yeah, it's got to be because they played way more games than that. How do you go 262 games without and score a goal in 262 games?
You got some offensive players there.
So they, 80-some games a year. So at least 3 seasons plus, depending on playoffs. That's amazing. All right, Chris.
All right. 1980, American speed skater Eric Heiden wins the 1,500 meter in Olympic record, 155.44, fourth of 5 gold medal sweep of events at Lake Placid.
Well, obviously, the 1980 Olympics is primarily known for the Miracle on Ice. I mean, that's just one of the greatest sports moments in U.S. and world history, probably, if you think about it. But Eric Heiden, I remember that. That dude was bad. And the way they skate in those, they tuck the one arm behind them, they swing that other arm. I'd be busted up all over.
They get low going
the
around
stuff
those
there,
curves,
yeah.
too.
I couldn't do it. But huge Olympics. That's probably still my favorite Olympics. Obviously, you were only about 10 years old then, right?
I know.
Okay.
I'm a little bit older now.
So, but you remember the Miracle on Ice,
yes.
of course. Everybody in America was a hockey
I remember
game
we were watching it, too.
for at least a week, You had that one, Chris. So I got 1980, Liechtenstein. You thought I wouldn't pronounce it right, did you?
Yeah.
There's a lot of different ways I could have gone with that, but I did.
Good job.
Liechtenstein.
Good job.
Becomes the smallest country to produce an Olympic champion as Hani Wenzel wins the women's giant slalom at the Lake Placid Winter Games, 1980. Once again, that great Olympics there.
1985, largest NBA crowd to date, 44,970 watched Atlanta play at Detroit.
I'm assuming that was probably in the old Silverdome. Had to be.
I
It
would
had that
assume
probably,
so.
yeah. It was at Detroit. Now, you don't happen to know. We talked about it a couple weeks ago, and there was one that eclipsed it, but then there was one they talked about that was done actually in Arlington Stadium, where the Cowboys play. So I'm assuming that's probably the biggest one now. I'm sure Jerry packed it as full as you could get NBA fans of it. So, and then I wonder if we'll have to look that up sometime because I'm wondering if some of the college basketball games like the Carrier Dome, not the Carrier Dome, but some of the other ones like the Superdome with the the crowds they had would have
Well,
eclipsed
didn't
that.
Iowa's women play the biggest one when they played in the football stadium a couple years ago with Caitlin Clark? I
Was
think
it?
that might be the biggest crowd ever to watch
Ever.
a college
We'll have to look
basketball
that
game.
up.
Not sure.
And I'm curious because
They played it in the football stadium.
the biggest football crowd ever has now been, from what I understand, was the one they had at Bristol. Remember Tennessee
Yes.
and
Yep.
Virginia Tech, 'cause
Yep.
it seats over 120,000.
Right.
I'm thinking if you get the right time of year, put a basketball court there and put 120-some thousand basketball fans. They did it on an aircraft carrier. It's
Yep.
nothing to do on the
Right.
infield of a racetrack. Now, did you have that one, Chris, or did you have that one?
I did that one.
All right, you got the next one,
All
Chris.
right, 1989, Pete Rose meets with MLB Commissioner Pete Ueberroth
Uberoff.
to discuss his gambling.
And it never got cleared up since. And Pete should be in the Hall of Fame.
Of course he
What do you
should.
think?
Of course
I
he
think,
should.
I mean, all-time hits leader. Charlie Hustle. He's some people, when I used to do the little questionnaire, some people have actually put him as the GOAT in Major League Baseball.
I just really don't understand. His betting was for his team to win, so it wasn't like he was trying to throw games or anything.
He never bet against his team.
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying. He bet for teams to win, not like where he had a direct influence on the game. They just had it out for him, I believe, back in the day.
And then you got Otani come up with that it was his interpreter that put the bets on the game, not him.
Well, I mean, you have the leading hits guy in
Pete
Major League
should have an
Baseball, the leading home run hitter, and the guy with the most Cy Youngs. None of them are in the Hall of Fame.
So I got the next one, right? 1992, Christy Yamaguchi of the U.S. wins the Olympic gold medal in women's figure skating. Not much to go with that. I don't know a lot about figure skating.
1993, Sergei Bubka pole vaults world record indoor at 6.15 meters.
What is that in feet, roughly? It's 39 times 6 would be what it is, right? No. 3 times 6.
You're jumping
That'd be a
189
lot of-
feet? Great.
that'd be
Day in the morning.
a little over 3 times 6. So it's close to probably 18, 19 feet. That's pretty nasty.
All right, I guess my turn. 2002, Canadian world champion women's ice hockey team wins first of 4 consecutive Winter Olympic gold medals with a 3-2 win over the United States in Salt Lake City.
Now, I think our women won it last time, didn't they? 4 years ago.
I believe so, yes.
Or 3 years ago, because the Olympics will be next year. And that's when it's, again, we talked about the All-Star break and them doing the 4 Nations thing. Then next year you got the Winter Olympics. So I could see them starting to alternate stuff other than just an All-Star game that nobody watches. All right, in 2017, Alex Puccio completes the first female ascent. I thought it was a guy. The first female ascent of Nagal V13. Does anybody know what that is? A mountain, I guess.
It's a boulder. They have these boulders they climb.
Okay.
In bouldering, it says.
8B
Specializing in
at
bouldering.
Heco Tanks. This has got a lot of stuff I don't understand. Renowned American climber specializing in bouldering. Thank you. You're right. You said that. You read ahead.
I read
of
it.
Yeah,
Just read it ahead
You
of it.
studied ahead.
I don't
a little
know.
bit. All right, you got the last one. Good luck with
All
a
right.
couple of these.
2021 Australian Open men's tennis, Novak Djokovic of Serbia wins a record extended 9th Australian title, dominating Russian Daniil Medvedev 7-5, 6-2, 6-2.
Wow, he's a name guy.
Doug is very smart because you know what he did there? What? Just say it fast. If you don't have it right, nobody knows. Yeah, act like you know what you're talking about. And I think you got it right anyway, but still. Speaking of getting it right, you obviously have gotten it right in your career, or you wouldn't be in the Hall of Fame. So what other games you want to talk about in your career? We talked about your time at Jacksonville. You said with the Cardinals, you got to the third. You guys got the third round one year.
Yeah.
Who were some of the players you had back then?
Bobby Grubbs.
Who's since passed away? Your son.
Let's see, who else did I have? Davis Morgan, Montrell Pollock, Chikari Boone, players like that.
Yeah.
That whole group that came up together. I think that might have been their junior year, senior year. I'm not for sure.
All kind of meshed together.
Yep.
And that's when you have those special years when you got a little bit of talent. You got to have good senior leadership. Yeah. And then you might have, a couple of dogs in the junior level, maybe even a sophomore. But most times it's usually the heavy-ended in the crowd. Now, Chris, you got any other Doug Erny stories to tell? I know you got probably tons of them.
Oh, yeah. I think those are all the
We
good
got to
ones.
keep them all where we can, talk
Yeah, I don't
want to
get them in too much trouble. I don't want them. I don't want them to take the Hall. Well, they can take away his Hall of Fame. And
Well, not unless you're talking about him driving an activity bus after drinking or something, but that didn't happen.
No.
He didn't drive activity
No.
buses.
no.
Nah,
We had
Chris has been a real strong supporter and follower of our program forever. So
Yeah.
he could probably tell you a lot of little things that He's probably forgot more than he could tell you, to be honest with you.
Oh,
Because
yeah,
every
and-
time we talk, there's something else going on.
And we've
It's
talked
another-
about before when it
yeah.
comes to Onslow County sports, Chris has forgot more than I ever
Right.
knew. You know,
Yeah.
so
He's probably
let's-
forgot more than I knew too about Lejeune sports back in the days.
What's the difference between like say even something like activity bus between the feds and the state schools? Is it just a federal activity bus you're driving? That's the only difference, or do they have drivers
They have
for
bus
you?
drivers. Like Onslow
They
County
do.
has school bus drivers. We had bus drivers that were paid to drive the buses, and they would do the activity,
Yeah.
the activity runs and stuff like that. So a lot of times we'd have the same one, for most of the year because
Yeah.
they requested to do basketball or
Or
whatever.
if they get where a certain sport they like or something. Yeah.
Okay, here's a name: Nathan Metz
Nathan
from
Metz.
Richland,
Bus drivers.
from the Pirate Invitational. This is the one time I saw
He's
Doug,
either forgot it or he's
Doug
acting like
Erny
he forgot it 'cause he don't talk
lost
about it.
his mind. This was before the Onslow County. Remember the Pirate Invitational between Swansboro
Right.
and Topsail? I think this was at Topsail one year. This was when Rodney Order was coaching Topsail, and Steve King his first year at Richlands, and y'all were up. Joe Harris was on the team. Y'all were up 2, and Nathan Metz from
Richlands.
Richlands
Threw one in from 3/4 court, full court. Is that what you're talking about? that
No,
one?
no.
Okay.
He threw.
He threw one up and they called a foul.
and they called a foul.
Like
It was kind of a phantom foul.
80 feet away from the goal. They
And he
called a
made
foul,
all
and
three
hit
free throws.
So that was
So he was shooting the ball, so they gave him the 3 free throws.
that's what they claimed.
Wow.
But-
That's a long way away.
You
to get
fouled
free
him,
throws.
and he just kind of threw it just
Yeah.
at a nonchalant, and they called it a shooting foul.
So in the action or whatever.
And
they call it.
and Nathan later told me after the game, he goes, "Yeah, I don't know why they called
I
it."
heard the whistle. I flung it. Yeah.
He did the smart play, yeah. There's a couple of times where we got a little bit bent out of shape over the years.
Oh,
Now, there's obviously we were talking about the difference between the federal game, the federal system, and the county and school system. Tournaments on the base, they were tough because people trying to get on. You didn't have to deal with it, but we did.
No, I mean I had to
ball
deal with
games,
it. We were the host of the middle school conference one year, and we had to deal with the same stuff. But it used to not be as hard to get on base.
Right.
You used to could just go right to when they have regular main gate. You go there, give them your license plate, your registration, your insurance card, and they give you a day pass. And now with all the stuff going on in the world, it's a lengthy process.
that's the
I mean, even
primary
me as
objective.
a federal worker, I have to get my license redone there so that they can update
Really?
the back of it so it can be scanned for me to go on base still.
When was the last time you got a driver's license totally renewed? Have you got the new one? Is what I'm asking. The one with the little cutouts.
No, I
and
don't have the new
all
black and
crazy
white. I
looking
don't know.
stuff,
I
yeah.
get that in 2 years.
Yeah.
So it's been 6 years ago.
It's different.
Yep.
It's like
But
hieroglyphics.
all your stuff is on the back of all your retired because when I first retired, they gave us a retired ID card. That didn't last long at all. So now we have to go get
They're
it.
so afraid probably somebody duplicated it or
don't
steal it
know.
or something. I guess. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about what's going on in the basketball world today. You still keep up with some of the teams and have seen what they've done. You may not have seen them all play, but you kind of know the records and stuff. Let's start with Jacksonville's conference. The Cardinals got a chance to make the playoffs in boys.
well, they finished fourth, tied for fourth in the Big Carolina. The boys did. So I think they're 8-11 now. So I would suspect they probably will make the playoffs.
I would think their RPI would be pretty
Yeah,
high.
the girls finished third, I believe. So
They're in.
They're in, and they got a pretty good non-conference record. So both Cardinal teams, I suspect, would be in.
And the only other county team there's Northside. Their boys I know are not.
No,
Just don't have enough record. I mean, remember last year they almost made it with
5 wins.
Yeah,
4
exactly.
Wins, yeah.
They had, I think they had the RPI, but they couldn't justify it because they didn't have enough wins or
Yeah.
something. Yeah. What about? I don't kept up with Northside
Yeah,
girls.
Northside girls, they actually got better, surpassed their win total from last year, but they're just not at that at that moment yet.
All right, Coastal 3A. Is obviously Swansboro boys, the cream of the crop. Have you seen them play this year?
I have not seen them play, but I've read a lot about them.
And you probably saw maybe
Saw 'em
seen
play
them
last
last year.
year.
If you saw them last year, you've
Yeah.
seen basically the same
Right.
team. I think they only lost maybe one kid from last year.
They only lost one kid, and they only have one loss this year, and that's to New Hanover, which everybody seems to think has a chance to win a 4A state
Right.
championship.
And when I first heard that, we were talking about on the show last week. I thought because New Hanover for a while was 3A, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but now they bumped up to 4A. So I was thinking that might be a mega matchup in the East, but it looks like Swansboro's the top dog in the East, aren't they?
I think if they play like they're supposed to, they have a chance of going really far.
Good.
Maybe to the Final Four.
Now is are the games that still at State and Carolina the final games?
I think the Winston-Salem, I believe.
Somebody said that's the regionals.
Yeah. Well,
Which
no.
is weird.
Oh, yeah. And so what they do is they don't do like the regional semifinal or regional final at one site like anymore. They do a traditional Final Four.
Okay.
So your state semifinal and your
I didn't realize that.
state championship is the same spot.
Be the same place.
Yeah.
It would be cool if you were the Pirates to wear your colors in the Dean Smith Center. Obviously,
Right.
everything is everything's that shade of blue. You like almost like the shade of blue you have on today. What about Swansburg girls?
They'll make the playoffs. I think they'll finish second in the Coastal 3A behind Croatan. So Croatan clinched last night with the win over Richlands. But Swansboro boys, they officially haven't clinched yet. They played tonight, Friday, at White Oak, and then they'll have the clinch, and then they'll play at home against West Carteret on Saturday. The girls will play at 1, and the boys will follow the finish of the regular season.
Now is Dixon the number 2 team in boys in the Coastal? I'm sorry, not Dixon. I'm White Oak.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, because Croatan lost to West Carteret a few days ago, so it'll be
I was going to ask you about Dixon, and when you said White Oak, it popped in my mind, and I said I transposed the wrong name there. Dixon boys have had a tough year, so they're not going.
and they're young though. They have a lot of freshmen, sophomores.
Now, what about Richlands? Any chance of their boys getting in?
I don't think so. They just don't have enough wins, but and Richlands girls have have had struggles this year.
So Swansboro and White Oak definitely in.
Yeah.
Now White Oak, of course, lost their best player. He's not coming back at any time, right? He can't be back for the playoffs.
CJ, no, it was a season in injury.
It was that's what I thought. That's unfortunate because he's a really great player. Let's switch to the girls. We already talked about Swansboro's girls second, Crocans are first. The other county girls, Dixon, do they have a chance?
No, they don't have a chance. They they
get in?
No, they don't have a chance. Kind of been of it. They have some young players too. So
So the next couple of years at Dixon,
perhaps
basketball will be a lot better. What about Richlands girls?
no, they lost a lot this year, and they just kind of a lot of other teams kind of took the next step.
How about White Oaks girls?
White Oak girls, if they got in, I think they'd be very dangerous. They've lost like 5 or 6 games.
So they're right
by
on
1
the
or 2
cut
points.
line.
Yeah,
Okay.
but they're a very dangerous team, and they could beat anybody on their schedule within the conference on any night.
Man, that was wild last year. The whole Richlands girls thing to win that tournament. And to be honest with you, I'd love to see it where every conference tournament had, if you won it, you're in.
Yeah.
Just like the big dance. And I think it adds more spice to it.
Well, and Coach may agree or disagree, but the argument that I heard last year was that body work. Well, and if you play a conference schedule for 2-3 months, okay, I understand. But a lot of these conferences, through nobody's fault, you only play 10 games, which is only about a month worth. So I've never really understood that body of work when you've only played a month of conference games. Again, nobody's fault, but it's
And with the snow and the ice threat and everything got kicked to tonight.
Yeah.
So all the East Central be tonight, Coastal and the Coast or the Big Carolina. I always want to call them the Coast because they were for years. The Big Carolina, all those will continue tonight. And
No, Big Carolina conference
Are they
tournament.
aborting?
No, they canceled because
Okay. I didn't know that.
But Lejeune boys, speaking of Lejeune, are actually hosting Northside Pinetown Friday night in the CPC tournament finals. So
Okay.
they'll play at 7:30 tonight.
And you were saying that conference didn't used to have a tournament, did they?
Yeah.
Coastal Plains.
It was on and off. Yeah, it was on and off.
I don't know. So they're hosting that. That's actually tonight, Friday night?
Yep.
Okay.
Mhm.
So if they win, and we want to talk about Lejeune boys too, are they in the tournament?
Well, them and Pinetown shared for the regular season.
So they'll be in either way.
Yeah, they'll be in either way.
You want to be the number 1 seed, though,
Yeah.
yeah, because you get more games at home. What about Lejeune girls?
No, they won't. They've won three games this year, 3 or 4. But I don't think they'll be able to get in.
Okay. And the only other conference is the East Central. Southwest girls are in, but not quite the girls teams that they've had.
Yeah.
But they still could be one of those that could be dangerous to a school that may not. For years we saw, and you remember this too, soccer teams from Onslow County would go in as a 4 seed, from their conference. So they'd be like a 32 seed or something and knock off a number 1 seed or whatever at their place because it was just so much better. And I think Southwest girls still have a chance to, maybe make a little noise in the tournament. They obviously won't be home like they have in the past.
But they'll be dangerous. I mean, they gave East Steuben girls all they could handle last week.
Yeah, that was a great game.
Yeah.
Senior night. Now, right now it's still up in the air between Southwest and Kinston for the number 1 seed in the East Central boys, correct?
Yeah, so the East Central semifinals will be all at Kinston on Friday, boys and girls.
Tonight.
And then, and then the championship games will be Saturday.
And if I remember right, it's Southwest versus North Lenore, and then Keenan and
East Duplin.
did Keenan beat Wallace?
Wallace,
And East Duplin, yeah. And there's never any love lost between Wallace and East Duplin.
Never.
Anybody that knows anything about this area, and then you had Wallace and James Keenan
Keenan,
playing the
yeah.
other night. The same thing. Of course, that was the game that a couple years ago in football you had the shots fired, and it's always, you don't want that certainly, but it's just always a wild event between those two. So there's a lot of conference action left to go. It's going to be interesting through the weekend. I would love to see Swansburg's obviously going to be the number 1 seed out of their conference and possibly the number 1 seed in the East, correct?
Yeah, I think so.
And I believe if I read all the RPI stuff right, either Southwest or Kinston, whichever one wins the East Central, will probably be the number 2 seed in the East.
I would suspect
Behind, it's Farmville Central,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I said Green Central last week, but I get the Centrals mixed up out there. But Farmville Central, they're pretty much the dog of the
And the
East
state playoff brackets will be released on Sunday.
on Sunday now
Yep.
because of the
Yeah.
pending games on Saturday. All right, Doug, we're going to finish up all Doug. Anything else you want to tell anybody about? Just, thank the wife or, the family or
I mean,
all the support staff?
basically, it's for me to get where I was at. It just took a lot of people behind the scenes from, one of my family members watching my dogs when I was gone all the time, for
Make
whatever.
sure you mention them in the speech because, that'll put you over Tony's time.
I'm not going to take nearly as long as Tony, but just all the assistant coaches, the managers, the stat keepers, everybody that nobody knows about.
Yeah.
That's what makes your good program, not the person in front holding the light.
And it's funny you should mention that because you see these programs where you get the managers that help and it's seamless where you're not constantly as a coach having to do those things.
Exactly.
They take care of it. All those little things that are taken care of is something else.
I had my kids that packed the travel bags for us with everything we needed. Never once did I have something left behind.
to get there and not having
It's
uniforms or anything.
just unbelievable.
And I got one more Doug.
One
Erny.
more Doug.
All right,
Erny,
here we
and
go.
we'll end on this. Unless he has 2 minutes for rebuttal.
And then, and I don't mean this derogatory, but we all love what everybody terms as garbage time. Is what the time when the game is lopsided.
It's
and
been over for a while.
And the coaches allow the reserves. The kids don't get a lot of playing time. And most times during those situations, you just let those kids have fun and do it because it's their one time to shine. But there's one time where Lejeune was up pretty big in a game. I was covering it. He put the reserves in. And what the reserves start doing was start jacking up 3-pointers, thinking they're Steph Curry.
Were they winging it from half court?
Well, no, they were, but they weren't. There was, he calls timeout and starts fussing them out and saying, "We don't do that. We don't do. You got to run the offense that we practice," and that's always kind of stood out.
Yeah.
He treated the reserves with the same level of respect and expectations as he did the starters, and he didn't. He wanted those plays run the right way and not kids run around like chickens with their heads.
I just expected them to play the game the way it was meant to be played. That's all.
It's not like it's not like you walked out to the hospitality room and started having a Coke and a
Right.
slice
No.
of pizza.
Oh, no.
You know that
You
and
coach
that's-
those guys just
Yeah.
as hard as you do everybody else because they're the guys that are every day playing against your starters.
Yeah.
They're the ones that are making the starters better, or if they're messing around in practice, they're not going to get any better.
Yep. And that's the case. And
You know.
you see so many great coaches, those teaching moments at the end of the game,
That's
no
what it
matter
was.
what the situation is.
And
that's-
Chris has seen it many times. I've taken my starters out
Yep.
because they weren't playing good enough defense and put those 5 at the end of the bench in.
was that when you were at Lejeune?
That's everywhere
Or
I've been.
Jackson?
Everywhere I've
So
been.
you call
At
that the red
Lejeune-
team. You remember what the blue team
Yeah,
was,
no,
right?
I didn't call it the red team. I called it the last 5. And they got out there and I just let the other guys just stew.
Yeah.
And they'd get madder and madder when they got out on the floor. They'd play well. So it's
Sometimes you see
you know,
those
these
kids
guys
outplay
work.
'em.
They work just as hard as you do. And if you're not going to play the game the right way, they're going to try it. And I'd stick them all in there.
Well, do you remember what the blue team was?
Yes.
Carolina.
Yep.
Dean Smith, if it wasn't just garbage time, if he saw that those 5 starters were, he
Yep.
would put a whole 5 new and they called them the blue team.
Yep.
And sometimes they'd outplay the starters.
Yep. They'd
'Cause
play
they
2 or
just
3 minutes at a time,
Yep.
and then they'd
come
come
in
on
and
out.
just take over. And then that's a great point that you're coaching them kids, and if they're not doing it, you'll replace them.
Oh, yeah. And I'm going to jump on them just like I am the star of the team.
But you don't see that often these days.
Not
You
as
see,
often,
it,
no.
during those situations, or coaches just let those guys run willy nilly, and
I mean, the way I feel, they're on your team for a reason. If they're not going to be able to play and play the game right, why did you keep them? You know, whether they play a minute a month or a minute every day,
Yeah.
they're still a vital part of your team.
And how many times with you coaching yourself or seeing it in other games, like you're at a tournament game or something and waiting for your team to play and watching it, a team may have an 8-point lead with 3 or 4 minutes to go, and they're shooting the ball within 5 or 10 seconds.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, if you get a layup or a good shot, that's great.
Well, I think the whole game of basketball is just
It's changed.
It's changed, and it hasn't changed for the better, in my opinion. I mean,
Yeah.
you got the worst thing they could have ever done in high school was put that 3-point line in.
Really?
In my opinion, because that took the game. You're supposed to play the game inside out, not outside in.
Yeah.
You know,
And obviously the NBA is a 3-point shooting contest.
exactly.
Basically.
Exactly.
I think one change that they did that I know everybody likes. I'm not a big fan of it. And is this the second year of the 5 foul shots?
per
or
quarter?
5 fouls per quarter, or is it first year?
I think it's the second year.
Second
It's
year.
second year.
I wish they'd just go back to nothing
Well,
but 1-1.
As a coach, I'm going to tell you that, in my opinion, and I think the state did it to speed up the games or whatever, but in my opinion, you've just taken a part of basketball out.
And that
There's
was my
never a
whole point.
1-and-1.
Yep.
How many different plays can you design off of a missed free throw late in the game, or how many times can you come back
Right.
by fouling the team and making a missed free throw?
Jim Valvano in the 83
Cardiac
Wolfpack.
pack, exactly.
We were talking about that with Robert Farley.
Yeah,
I say early. Robert
and he
Farley
said it was
last
meant to
week.
speed up the game. Well,
What he was saying though, what we were talking about is the Wolfpack never would have come back.
Exactly.
That game against Pepperdine
But
out in the
I
in the
watched
West region.
the middle school girls game the other day. I didn't plan on getting there. I went to watch the boys game, but that girls game took over an hour and a half to play
because of the fouls,
because of the fouls.
and they're all 2 shots.
And that's supposed to speed up the game. I don't know who made that rule, but
Well, and that's the point I was going to make when we started this part of it. I would have changed it. I don't like the 1-and-1 till 7, and then the double bonus at 10. I would do nothing but 1-and-1, and that's just me because I think it puts more emphasis on free throws.
Yep.
Tyler Hansbrough made a career out of free throws.
I mean, you can make a 2-shot foul at 12. That's going to keep people from just becoming a bloodbath later in the game.
That's
you
true.
know,
Yeah.
there's different things they could do. I just think it's taken a part of the game out that is really vital to strategic ways of doing things.
Strategery.
Yeah, in my opinion.
Well, one more thing I want to ask, and you guys know this answer, I'm sure. They do have a running clock in basketball if it gets too far out of hand,
40.
right?
Yeah.
40. So if you're up at 40, and the same way in football, can a running clock ever stop?
No.
Like what if that miracle comeback in football? Say right after the halftime, you're up by 40. And this is just
No, it's 42 in football.
It
42.
stops at a timeout, though, right?
It stops at a timeout.
That's the only time.
But during change of possession or during incomplete
or free
pass.
throws or everything.
To be honest, it's never really gotten that far. But I have seen scores where it's been 42-0 at halftime, and it ends up being like 42-28.
yeah, exactly. So say you get that close. I mean, I think they ought to have a limit where it gets within a certain range. It starts stopping.
Lacrosse, I think lacrosse might be 9 or 10 goals.
Is it?
But once a team gets close, they stop it.
And that's what I like to see in the other sports
Yeah.
because you never see that miracle comeback. You know, I mean, I know 40 points. If you get up 40 points in basketball, it ain't probably.
All I know is in the media business, once you get that 40 points, you're like, yes. Come on, keep on going.
Pork
keep on
chops are on the table.
And the
There's a
hard-
lot of time when you're in the coaching business, you're like that too. Yes, let's go ahead and get
you're-
on out of here before
Yeah.
And
somebody
that
gets
hardest
hurt.
point in basketball is when the team's up 39.
Yeah.
And how many missed layups or missed free throws? Not that you're wishing ill will on toward high school kids or teens or anything, but
when it gets to that point, it's time to go.
you know,
Yeah.
when it's already 10:30 and you know you're
And every now and then you see one get called early because of a fight or because it's just so far out of hand. Well, Doug, man, thank you for being with us.
I appreciate you having me on.
Great career you had. You touched a lot of kids' lives. That's the thing, and just the thing you were talking about not about your other support staff stuff, not just your star players, not just your basketball players, but all the kids, man, the things that you've done, you know, that's Hall of Fame stuff.
Well, I appreciate it.
And we're glad to.
Like I said, a lot of good people behind the scenes, a lot of great assistant coaches. They were the ones running the ship. I was just steering it.
And we're looking forward to your acceptance speech. I know you.
I
won't
split time with Tony.
give him that first 10 minutes. When you get there, I'd like to defer my first 10 minutes to Tony. He thought of some other folks he wanted to thank. And Tony knows we're kidding.
Oh, yeah.
Because we love him. And as long as it was, I never got tired of hearing it because he has so many.
He's got some
rabbit
good
holes
stories
he
now.
went
Yeah,
down,
he's
and so
got
many
good
funny
stories.
things. Yeah, it's good stuff. Well, thank you for being with us. Thank you, Chris Miller, for being with us. Anything you want to plug with the JD News?
Just continue to support Chris Miller keeping his job foundation and
Local news. Yes. It's shrunk a lot over the years, but those couple of pages you still have, man, it's a lot of. I love the things you do with the top performers. That's one of my favorite things. Giving those kids credit for those big
to be
games.
honest, the parents love him.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just John Smith, Jacksonville. The senior scored 20 points as in a 45-21 win.
Right.
Parents love seeing that stuff, and he gets everybody mentioned from different schools. So people
And that's
really
the ones where they might be looking at it online all the time, but when they see their kid pop in, they're out to the paper box.
Chris has always done a great job covering sports here.
Yes, has.
Always.
Especially now because you're the only one. You're the Lone Ranger, man. What's your record for most games and most locations you had to go to in a night? Or do you pretty much just stick to the one that you're
Well,
at?
I usually just stick to the one. I will do that the first day of football practice this past season. I didn't make all, 11 stops
Really?
because you can count Liberty Christian.
Yeah, that's true.
So
Wow.
from East Duplin, Croatan, and luckily they were all spread out. Even Lejeune, I worked it out where I got Lejeune.
You must have done Lejeune first so you can get on and.
No, Lejeune was actually one of the last ones.
Do they let you on? Would you just your media
No, I had
pass?
to go through the process.
He started a month early in the
Yeah.
process, probably.
Don't get me started. All right, we do want to thank our sponsors before we take off here. National Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram, Jones LP Gas located in Verona, Golden Corral, Fountain Management, Bartley Insurance Services, Onslow County Motor Company, Humphrey Heating and Air Conditioning, Lane Associates Family Dentistry, Jones Onslow EMC, your Touchstone Energy Cooperative, Southern Touch Painting, Barnes Diamond Gallery, and once again, Jones LP, thank you for being one of our new sponsors here on Sports Talk. Helen's Kitchen and Billy Grizzly, we're getting ready to tear those cheeseburgers up. Hurricane Watch, it was abbreviated this year, but thank you to Down East Heating and Air and Jason Humphrey and the game for sponsoring that. Our hockey report, we'll call it this week, and we'll get more back on the Hurricanes Watch next week. And that's our wrap. Congratulations once again. 2025 Jacksonville Onslow Sports Commission Hall of Fame inductee
Yeah,
Doug
man.
Erny.
Thanks
and
for-
Chris Hollywood Man has something he wants to add, I think.
Yeah, so listen, we're talking about artificial intelligence, right? Which is kind of scary.
Some of us don't have regular intelligence. Like me.
I'm included
Yeah.
there, right? So I've gotten into this a little bit. So this and it helps me with a lot of stuff like write commercials, all that. I mean, it's just an assistant, right? But it's cool, but it's kind of scary. So I want to test something out, okay? Before we
Oh,
leave.
no. I'm
All
almost.
right, here we go. Here we
Somewhere
go.
Ashley's cringing listening to
Now
this.
this is all about sports, okay? Okay, it's hopefully promotes the radio station. Let's check this out. Hang on a second.
Can y'all hear
Hey,
that?
ChatGPT, can you tell me about that sports show on WSME?
Of course. The sports show on WSME is Sports Talk with Chris Rayner. It airs on Friday mornings at 9 a.m. and features local sports guests covering various high school sports. Chris Rayner is known for his engaging personality, and the show is well loved for its community focus and great segments. Chris really enjoys it.
Wow, well, thanks so much.
That goes to show you can pay AI off. That is my second best introduction besides Rick Dees. Just
my
having
God.
Rick Dees, no matter what the circumstance were, doing a plug for me, that's
Yeah.
just awesome because Rick, Casey Kasem, obviously that ain't gonna happen,
Well,
or Dick
listen,
Clark.
that's
That's
scary,
amazing,
man.
yeah.
That's a little scary, though, right? I mean,
Let me get her number when we get through, okay? All right, we'll see you next week on Sports Talk.